I have proof that Tupac Shakur actually begged Death Row to prepare the contract that they legally promised him before coming out of prison. How come they didn't do it? Promises made, but promises unkept. Also, Reggie Wright Jr. wants us to believe that he didn't see the letter that Tupac sent him firing him on August 27th, 1996. But Frank Alexander said that he seen it. And he said that Tupac told him that, nah, Frank, you ain't got to worry about that because you coming with me. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend, and like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit that bell notification. I'm going to get right into this. Man, I just came across another video where they're using my name, trying to capitalize off the game that I've been spitting, whether it's on my channel or over there with the Art of Dialogue. Let me give you this. Hip Hop Viral News recently had Reggie Wright Jr. on their platform as a guest, and the whole video was about me. Right? You know what they say, right? Man, if they ain't talking about you, you ain't doing nothing right. So I must be doing something right for them to be talking about me in that manner, right? And so what I'll do is this. The information that I presented, I've always brung you paperwork in regards to what I'm saying. Like I said, I brung you the paperwork with Tupac firing Reggie Wright Jr. and his security company on August 27th, 1996, right? Just 17 days before Tupac was killed and died in Las Vegas, right? Facts, right? And so now Reggie Wright went on there to tell them that he didn't receive the facts, which we know is not true. You're not the president of the United States. You had a fax to your security company. You know you received the facts. And then he went into detail as to how you should believe that he didn't receive the facts, because Tupac still had his security guards around him, you know, at the time in New York and in Vegas. Well, what I'm going to bring to you today is something that you really need to understand from a real perspective, right? Tupac had his company, Euthanasia. So Euthanasia was Tupac's own entity run by Yasmin Fula, like I said before. And so when Tupac was under Death Row, Tupac wasn't just an artist under Death Row, meaning the umbrella. Tupac was signed to his own label, but he had other companies too. And one of those other companies was Euthanasia Incorporated, which handled his bookings, his movie deals, and all of those other things on side of him being him recording under Death Row and not actually being signed, but still being signed to Interscope, right? Okay, so now, with that being said, Tupac was being billed for Reggie Wright's security company when that was part of the billing, right? So they would bill, you know, basically Euthanasia, right? And so that was a separate thing in regards to Tupac's personal security. So when Tupac fired Reggie Wright, he didn't fire him from Death Row. He actually fired him from representing him or securing him under the Euthanasia umbrella, which was being billed by Death Row for protecting Tupac, or should I say Right Way Security for protecting Tupac. So when Tupac fired Reggie Wright and Right Way Security on August 27, 1996, he fired them from his personal protection, not from Death Row, right? So now, what Reggie Wright would have you believe is the fact that when Tupac and them went to New York to the MTV Video Music Awards, right? That he was still working for Tupac. He wasn't. He was working for Death Row. And so under the Death Row umbrella, the security would normally just be there. So, you know, they would be around Tupac also, right? So now, going to Las Vegas, right? You go into Las Vegas. Reggie Wright said it on Vlad TV that he had 21 or 20 security guards at 662 on the night that Tupac was shot. And there was only one security guard, Frank Alexander, right, on Tupac at the MGM Grand, as well as when they were riding in the caravan in the car. Correct? Right. So now, the number one hip-hop artist in the world, right? Club 662 hadn't even started yet. Suge and them hadn't even reached there yet. You got one security guard that you're claiming is your security guard that worked for you, but we know that not to be true based on the fact that when Tupac fired Reggie Wright and his security company, Frank Alexander even said it. He said, "Yo, Pac, is you firing me too?" And Tupac told him, Frank said that Tupac told him, "Nah, Frank, you going with me." These are facts, right? So that's why Frank was with Tupac on the night in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996, right? Now, another thing, right? People always want to say and that Reggie Wright told him not to have guns or whatever. It was even before that. When you go into Las Vegas as a private security company, security guard, right? They have a certain protocol that you need to follow when you go there, right? Basically, you need to check in with the state as far as who's going to be carrying guns, the reason why. So there's paperwork that needed to be submitted prior to them even entering Vegas, right? That wasn't done, right? That's part of handling your business and setting up a security protocol, right? Even before you got to Vegas. So it's like, you know, the president going somewhere. The Secret Service arrives before the president to scope out things, make sure everything's cool, so on and so forth, right? So Vegas has that thing where you do for a private security company that you need to check in, probably checking your guns, serial numbers, all of these things and so on and so forth that you need to do and handle. It was not done. That was Reggie Wright's responsibility, right? He didn't handle that. So therefore, he didn't need to tell them that they didn't need to carry guns. They couldn't because he didn't handle his business, right? So on that night, you know, you would think that he would have more than one security guard on Tupac and Suge, right? The biggest number one selling artist in the world at that time. It was a dismal failure. It was a dismal failure. And so when you understand Tupac firing him, Reggie Wright was still bitter. He was bitter. Oh yeah, he was bitter. He had all his security guards down there at 662. And the only person that was up there with Tupac was Frank. Because Tupac trusted Frank and Tupac liked Frank. Like I said, you've seen the videos with Tupac hugging on Frank's niece who was in the wheelchair, who was handicapped and so on and so forth. They had a better relationship, I would think, than most of the security guards that worked for Reggie at that particular time, right? But let me get into the promise. The promise when he went on to their onto Hip Hop Viral News and wanted to use my name once again to try to profit based on the fact that I've been giving you these facts, right? And I can understand that, right? You know, but what I don't understand is why you would continue, or should I say, he would continue to lie, and people can't really discern that it's a lie. Okay, so check it out. Promise number one. Promise number one, September 15th. I'm gonna get into this and I'm gonna run through it real fast. Check this out. Promise number one. Tupac is in jail. September 15th, 1995. The promise was this: Suge Knight is to be my manager for all music endorsers for a period of 3 years. Suge will cause a contract to be entered into by and between Tupac Shakur and Death Row Records, which will include the following deal points, right? So, when Tupac was going to go and be released under Death Row, when he was when he went to jail initially, he was signed under Interscope, Out the Gutter, his own record label. We already talked about that, right? But this is what Tupac was hoping, and that they promised him that they would have a contract written up, and Suge was supposed to do that, have a contract written up between Death Row and Tupac. As Tupac's manager, Suge was supposed to handle that, right? This was a signed document, duly signed by Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight agreeing to this, right? Promise number one. So now, once they were on the record label, Tupac comes to the label. They do the music. They drop All Eyes on Me. All Eyes on Me goes through the roof, right? What you have to understand is there was a stipulation in that agreement that every million records sold, Tupac would be given $1 million, right? They never paid none of those advances. None of them. None of the advances. And the money that Afeni Shakur actually received from Death Row, which wasn't a settlement, it was advances. Jimmy Iovine advanced her $3 million, right, to start off with, and then agreed to up Tupac's original royalty rate that was on his Interscope contract from 12% to 18%, right? Afeni Shakur negotiated all of that. Her and her attorney negotiated all of that, right? With a promise of $2 million later down the line. That's $5 million. That $5 million was basically overall for the sales of All Eyes on Me and the advances that Tupac was supposed to get for the sales of All Eyes on Me. Once again, Reggie Wright misdirecting y'all with this information. These are facts, y'all. Listen. So now, once Tupac is under Death Row, here we have it now. And you have to understand what I'm about to read to you, because Tupac begged them, practically begged them, for the contract between himself and Death Row. Listen. Despite repeated requests by Tupac to David Kenner for contracts to be drawn up between Tupac and Death Row, Kenner failed to protect Tupac's interests by causing such contracts to be drawn and entered into. Listen, although Tupac requested that Kenner assist him in negotiating a merchandising contract, Kenner delayed in doing so, and more to the point, never told Tupac that Death Row had already entered into a merchandising arrangement with Globex for the exploitation of Tupac's name and likeness. Listen, that's not one agreement, that's two agreements. That's the agreement between Tupac and Death Row, and that's the merchandising agreement between Tupac and Death Row, giving them the right to license his image and his likeness for products, whether it was albums, t-shirts, and all of those things, right? Two contracts that were never entered into. So now, when I say Tupac wasn't signed to Death Row, how come you can't understand that? That's not taken away from Suge Knight's legacy. That's facts, right? Suge Knight is Suge Knight. I ain't got nothing against Suge Knight. I got love for Suge. You know what I mean? And I spoke about, like I said, once again, the night that Suge, preferably saved me and Dr. Dre's life at the Chris Tucker after party. So I got nothing but love. And furthermore, like I said, because I like you and I love you does not mean that I'm not going to be honest about what I know to be true. I would think that you would appreciate that and not find that to be something in which someone would be trying to take away from someone's legacy, according to Reggie Wright. He's the Suge Knight legacy police, if you will, But what he's actually trying to do is he's trying to boost his own legacy in regards to that, right? So let me get into this. That was Promise Broken, number 1 and 2, right? Check this out. Listen now. Remember I told you. September 15th, 1995. You got to listen. Subsequent to September 16th, 1995, Kenner failed and refused to perform his duties as Tupac's attorney, because to have done so would have been contrary to Knight's interests, Kenner's own personal interests, and the interests of Death Row. Did you hear that? I'm gonna read it again. Subsequent to September 16th, Kenner failed and refused to perform his duties as Tupac's attorney, because to have done so would have been contrary to Knight's interests, Kenner's own personal interests, and the interests of Death Row. Accordingly, while the Dannemora agreement obligated Death Row to prepare a formal recording agreement between Tupac and Death Row, Kenner never prepared such an agreement, although Tupac repeatedly demanded that he do so. Tupac repeatedly demanded that he do so, right? So you have Reggie Wright running around here telling you like he knows about Tupac's business. Remember, Tupac fired him. Tupac didn't deal with him like that. He didn't have that relationship with Tupac like that. As a matter of fact, if you pay attention to the date, which I'm going to get to in a minute, you'll see, right? Then it says, by reasons of Kenner's failure to prepare a formal recording agreement, plaintiffs have been damaged by being deprived of the opportunity to invoke those clauses which an attorney truly representing the independent interests of Tupac would have insisted upon. Y'all stop playing games, man. Stop playing games. This is not about nobody's legacy. This is about the truth and the facts in regards to Tupac, right? You know, most people would say, yeah, Reggie Wright has something to do with Tupac's death and all of that, set him up. I don't believe that. See, I'm not here to slander nobody. You know what I mean? I'm not here to, talk crazy and all of that. I'm here to give you the facts. What Reggie Wright didn't do, or what he failed to do, was adequately protect Tupac Shakur in Vegas on that night. Period. Check this out. Instead, upon information and belief, Death Row, unbeknownst to Tupac, he didn't even fucking know, right? Entered into an illegal merchandising agreement with a company named Globex, in which items such as t-shirts and other wearing apparel bearing Tupac's name and likeness was sold without Tupac's consent and without paying him any royalties or commissions, but from which Death Row profited financially. Dude, if anybody's trying to rewrite history, it would be Reggie Wright Jr. And like I said, going on other platforms and things like that, using my name, trying to get paid, I never said Reggie Wright's name a day in my life until he mentioned my name. So like I said, once again, boy, if they're not talking about you, you ain't doing something right, right? So what that let me know is what I'm doing is right. But more, not even being me being right, it's just the facts. Like I said, don't take it up with me. Take it up with the fact police. You know what I mean? And I'm going to leave you with this, right? Check this out. This is contract number 3, right? That wasn't prepared for Tupac. So you have the contract between him and Death Row was promised number 1 broke, right? The contract between Tupac and Death Row to be able to license his image and his license. Contract number 2 broke, never prepared. And I'm going to get into contract number 3 right here. Y'all ready? Check this out. In addition, during 1996, Tupac was afforded the opportunity to compose the musical score to a motion picture entitled Gang Related, in which Tupac was also acting. while a contract for Tupac's acting was prepared, that document expressly provided for a written contract to be prepared, which would govern the rights of the parties as it related to the soundtrack album. Upon being given the opportunity to compose the foregoing musical score, Tupac directed Kenner to prepare the necessary contractual documents. Because Kenner never prepared those documents, Tupac lost the opportunity to compose the musical score for Gang Related, as well as the income he would have earned for such musical score. By reason of the foregoing acts of omissions and commissions on the part of Kenner, plaintiffs have been damaged in the sum of $20 million. I ain't even talking about the money part. The money part is a number that they would come up with, basically saying that this was something that they were supposed to get and so on and so forth. What I'm talking about is the fact that he didn't even prepare the contract. That's 3 contracts, y'all. So like I said, when they go on other channels, they're trying to use my name. They're trying to, capitalize off my name because they seen, like I said, what me and Auto Dialogue did, what I'm doing on my own channel. Like I said, everything that I say on my channel, they come back and do a video too. But they telling you, he ain't doing no numbers on his channel. Right. But everything I do, you try to do, and then try to take the information that I provided and put a spin on it. Right? It's not going to work. Right? What they say, man. They say lies run sprints, but the truth runs marathons. That's a fact. Your boy DELRAY, straight game.